You know that feeling of giving your best and still getting nowhere? Training, eating right, counting every calorie, and yet your body doesn't seem to respond? I've been there, and so have most of my students. What few people realize is that many of these struggles come from small, repeated mistakes, details that seem harmless but over time, quietly sabotage your progress. And the worst part? These are the exact mistakes no one on the internet talks about. That's why I made this video. Because before chasing miracle diets or magic shortcuts, you need to know what not to do. Eliminating these roadblocks is the first step toward building the body you want, without suffering and without frustration. And if you're ready to go further, I've saved a special limited access guide we developed based on hundreds of real-life cases. But don't wait too long, it's only available for a short time. The first and arguably most critical mistake is getting lost in the nutritional weeds while completely ignoring the big picture. I see this all the time. People obsessing over whether they should eat breakfast, when their post-workout anabolic window is, or if they should cut off carbs after 6 p.m. They meticulously track their meal timing down to the minute, but they have no idea how many total calories or grams of protein they're consuming over the course of the day. This is like meticulously arranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. You're focusing on trivial details while ignoring the massive foundational principles that will actually keep your ship afloat. Let's be clear. The single most important factor for changing your body composition is your total energy balance. This is dictated by calories in versus calories out. If your goal is fat loss, you must be in a caloric deficit. If your goal is to build muscle, you need to be in a slight caloric surplus or at least at maintenance. This isn't a theory, it's a fundamental law of thermodynamics. It governs everything. No amount of meal timing trickery or specific food choices can override this basic principle of energy balance. Similarly, after total calories, the next most important variable is your total daily protein intake. Protein is the building block of muscle tissue. If you aren't consuming enough protein, your body simply won't have the raw materials it needs to repair the muscle damage from your workouts and build new, stronger muscle fibers. Aiming for a specific protein target each day is non-negotiable for anyone serious about building a better physique. It's far more impactful than worrying about whether your protein source is fast digesting or slow digesting. So what does this mean for you practically? It means before you even think about things like nutrient timing, glycemic index, or organic food labels, you need to have a solid handle on your daily calorie and protein targets. A good starting point for protein is around 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight, or roughly 0.7 to 1 gram per pound. For calories, you can use an online TD calculator to get a baseline estimate for maintenance, and then adjust from there to create a deficit or surplus. Think of your nutrition like a pyramid. The base of that pyramid, the largest and most important part, is your total calorie intake. The next layer up is your macronutrient distribution, with protein being the most crucial macro for body composition. Above that, you have micronutrients, vitamins and minerals from whole foods. And way up at the tiny, almost insignificant peak of the pyramid, that's where you find things like meal timing, food composition, and supplements. Focusing on the peak while ignoring the base is a recipe for failure. I've seen countless studies analyzing these minor variables. For example, a 2013 meta-analysis by Schoenfeld, Aragon, and Krieger looked at the anabolic window. They found that while there might be a small benefit to consuming protein somewhat close to your workout, the effect is minor compared to simply hitting your total daily protein target. The window is much wider than the 30-minute dogma many people believe, likely spanning several hours both before and after your session. The takeaway is clear: hit your daily numbers first. Another common obsession is the type of carbohydrate. People will argue endlessly about white rice versus brown rice or sweet potatoes versus white potatoes. While there are minor differences in fiber and micronutrient content, their impact on your body composition is dwarfed by the total amount of carbohydrates and calories you consume. If you're in a caloric deficit and hitting your protein goal, the choice between white or brown rice will not be the factor that makes or breaks your fat loss journey. The practical application here is to simplify your approach. Spend your mental energy where it matters most. Use an app like MyFitnessPal or MacroFactor for a week or two, not to obsess but to educate yourself. Get a feel for the calorie and protein content of the foods you typically eat. Once you have a handle on the big picture and can consistently hit your main targets, your progress will become far more predictable and consistent. You need to establish your primary objectives first. Is your goal fat loss? Then your number one priority is maintaining a consistent caloric deficit. Is your goal muscle gain? Your priority is a modest caloric surplus and adequate protein. Everything else is secondary. Don't let yourself get distracted by fitness influencers arguing about minutia online. Master the fundamentals. In summary, stop majoring in the minors. Before you worry about the organic label on your spinach or the exact minute you drink your protein shake, ask yourself, do I know my daily calorie target and am I hitting it? Do I know my daily protein target and am I hitting it? If the answer to either of these questions is no, that is your starting point. Fix that first. Everything else is just noise. The second major mistake that derails so many people is adopting a good food versus bad food mentality. This is the black and white thinking where certain foods are labeled as clean and therefore permissible, while others are labeled as dirty or bad and must be avoided at all costs. You see this everywhere. Chicken, broccoli, and brown rice are good, while pizza, ice cream, and cookies are bad. This dichotomous mindset is not only scientifically inaccurate, but it's also psychologically destructive and a primary driver of unsustainable eating habits. This moralistic view of food sets you up for a vicious cycle of restriction and binging. When you completely forbid yourself from eating a certain food you enjoy, you inevitably increase your desire for it. It's human nature. The forbidden fruit tastes the sweetest, so you white-knuckle your way through a restrictive diet of clean foods for days or weeks, until your willpower eventually breaks. And when it does, you don't just have a slice of pizza, you eat the entire thing, followed by a pint of ice cream, because you feel like you've already failed. This binge is then followed by intense feelings of guilt and shame. You tell yourself you have no discipline and that you've ruined all your progress. To compensate, you double down on restriction, promising to be extra good starting tomorrow. This creates a destructive yo-yo cycle that harms your relationship with food and makes consistent progress impossible. You're either on your diet or off your diet with no middle ground. Sustainable progress, however, is built in that middle ground. The reality is that no single food is inherently good or bad for your body composition. What matters is the overall context of your diet. A slice of pizza, when it fits within your daily calorie and macronutrient targets, will not magically make you fat. Conversely, a diet consisting entirely of clean foods like chicken and broccoli will cause you to gain fat if it puts you in a significant caloric surplus. The body doesn't recognize foods as clean or dirty, it recognizes them as sources of calories, protein, carbs, and fats. This is where the concept of flexible dieting, or if it fits your macros, becomes so powerful. The principle is simple. As long as you are hitting your daily calorie and macro targets, you can incorporate small amounts of the foods you enjoy without guilt or detriment to your progress. This isn't a license to eat junk food all day. The vast majority of your diet, say 80 to 90%, should still come from nutrient-dense, minimally processed whole foods. These foods provide essential vitamins, minerals, and fiber that are crucial for overall health, satiety, and performance. But that remaining 10 to 20% of your calories can be used for those so-called bad foods. Having a scoop of ice cream after dinner or a couple of cookies with your coffee is perfectly fine if it's accounted for. This flexibility is the key to long-term adherence. It transforms your diet from a temporary period of suffering into a permanent, enjoyable lifestyle. It removes the psychological burden of restriction and eliminates the urge to binge. Think about it from a practical standpoint. Life happens. There will be birthday parties, holidays, and dinners out with friends. A good bad food mindset forces you into social isolation or a state of constant anxiety around these events. A flexible approach, however, allows you to participate in these social rituals without derailing your progress. You can plan ahead, make sensible choices, and enjoy a piece of birthday cake without feeling like you've committed a dietary sin. This approach is supported by research. A 2017 study by Helms, Aragon, and Fitchen found that a flexible dietary strategy was associated with a lower risk of overeating, lower body weight, and less anxiety and depression compared to a rigid, all-or-nothing approach. By allowing for moderation, you foster a healthier psychological relationship with food, which is the cornerstone of long-term success. You learn to trust yourself and make choices that align with your goals without needing a strict list of forbidden foods. So, how do you implement this? Start by following the 80-20 rule. Focus on filling 80% of your daily caloric intake with whole foods, lean proteins, vegetables, fruits, and complex carbohydrates. Then, allow yourself the other 20% for whatever you like, as long as it fits your total calorie and macro numbers for the day. This balance provides your body with the micronutrients it needs, while satisfying your psychological need for flexibility and enjoyment. Ultimately, you need to shed the moral judgment you attach to food. Food is fuel, but it's also a source of pleasure and a part of our culture. Erasing the good and bad labels allows you to see food for what it is, a collection of macronutrients and micronutrients. By focusing on the overall pattern of your diet, hitting your calorie and protein goals with mostly whole foods, you can build a sustainable, effective, and most importantly, enjoyable nutritional lifestyle that gets you the results you want without the psychological baggage. The third mistake is one of the most tempting and also one of the most destructive, making drastic all-or-nothing changes to your diet. This is the mindset that says, starting Monday, I'm cutting out all carbs, or I'm going on a 1,200 calorie a day crash diet to lose weight fast. These extreme approaches are born from impatience, but they are almost always a direct path to failure. They promise quick results, but they deliver metabolic adaptation, muscle loss, and an inevitable rebound in weight gain. When you slash your calories dramatically, your body's survival mechanisms kick in. It doesn't know you're trying to get a six-pack for summer, it thinks you're starving. In response, it begins to down-regulate your metabolism to conserve energy. This process, known as adaptive thermogenesis, means your body becomes more efficient and burns fewer calories throughout the day. Your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT, the calories you burn from fidgeting, walking, and daily movements, tends to plummet. You feel lethargic, your workouts suffer, and the rate of fat loss slows to a crawl. Furthermore, a very aggressive caloric deficit significantly increases the risk of muscle loss. When your body is starved for energy, it will start breaking down metabolically active muscle tissue to use for fuel, especially if your protein intake is also inadequate. This is the exact opposite of what you want. The goal is to lose fat while preserving or even building muscle. Losing muscle not only worsens your physique, but also further slows your metabolism, making it even harder to lose fat in the long run. This is why a slow and steady approach is almost always superior. A more conservative rate of weight loss allows you to lose fat while minimizing muscle loss and mitigating the negative metabolic adaptations. A sensible and sustainable target for fat loss is to aim to lose around 0.5 to 1% of your body weight per week. For a 200-pound individual, that's a loss of 1 to 2 pounds per week. This typically corresponds to a daily caloric deficit of 500 to 1,000 calories, which is manageable for most people. This slower pace might not sound as exciting as losing 10 pounds in a week, but it's the only way to ensure the weight you're losing is primarily fat, not precious muscle. It also makes the process infinitely more sustainable. A moderate deficit is less psychologically taxing. You'll have more energy, your hunger levels will be more manageable, and you won't feel like you're constantly battling your own body. This allows you to stick with the plan long enough to see real, lasting results. The same principle applies to cutting out entire food groups. Diets like keto, which eliminates carbohydrates, or extreme low-fat diets can work for some people, but they are often needlessly restrictive. There is nothing inherently fattening about carbohydrates or fats. They are essential macronutrients that play vital roles in hormone production, energy for training, and overall health. Eliminating an entire food group makes adherence incredibly difficult, especially in social situations, and can lead to nutrient deficiencies. Instead of making drastic cuts, focus on making small, incremental changes. If you're currently eating in a large surplus, don't immediately drop to 1,500 calories. Start by reducing your intake by 300 to 500 calories, and see how your body responds. Track your weight and waist measurements for a couple of weeks. If you're losing weight at the target rate, stay there. If your weight loss stalls, you can make another small reduction. This methodical approach is far more effective. Think of it like steering a large ship. You don't yank the wheel all the way to one side to change course. You make small, precise adjustments. The same is true for your diet. Small, sustainable changes that you can maintain consistently over time will always outperform a short-term, extreme overhaul. Consistency is the true secret to success, and you can only be consistent with an approach that doesn't make you miserable. Research consistently backs this up. A review published in the journal Obesity Reviews found that programs promoting gradual weight loss resulted in better long-term weight maintenance and fewer adverse effects compared to very low-calorie diets. The rapid weight loss from crash dieting is often followed by an equally rapid regain, frequently leaving the person heavier than when they started, a phenomenon known as weight cycling. So, resist the urge for a quick fix. Be patient. Your goal isn't just to lose weight, it's to change your body composition for good. This requires building sustainable habits, not engaging in a temporary sprint of deprivation. Set a realistic rate of weight loss, create a moderate deficit, and focus on consistency over intensity. This is the scientifically backed path to getting lean and staying that way.